Hello, my name is Dan Hennen. Today is episode number 23 of going over the book, The Gray Stage, written by Greg Fernandez, Jr. Today we'll be joined with Sophia, Catherine, Greg, and Stephen to discuss this case. We are on Chapter 11, entitled 21 Questions for Detective Gummert. And what we'll do is go through the reading of the book, and because Stephen is a former police officer, we're going to get his viewpoints on some of these items first with the Crowley case. He'll have some good insight, I believe. Starting off, on April 19th, 2015, I, meaning Greg, sent an email to Apple Valley Police Department's Detective Jim Gummert and requested to speak with him about the case they were building against David Crowley. On April 23rd, Detective Gummert replied to my email, quote, "Since the case is still considered active by our department, I'm unable to discuss the case or answer any of your questions," end quote. I immediately sent him a response asking if he could speak with me once the case was closed. The following day, Detective Gummert wrote back to me, quote, "Yes, once the case is no longer active, I would discuss it with you," end quote. Once the investigation was closed, I sent another email to the detective on March 16th, 2016. Quote, "I'm currently writing some articles regarding the David Crowley double murder-suicide case," I wrote to the detective. "I would love to get some questions answered and police reports/images clarified if possible. Please let me know if it is possible to schedule a phone call with you or other detectives to be included in the articles. If questions and answers need to be done via email, we can make that work too. Thank you very much for always being responsive to my emails," end quote. "Mr. Fernandez," Detective Gummert quickly responded, quote, "I appreciate your willingness to include our department's point of view in your upcoming articles, but our department is no longer discussing this case. We believe the time has come to move forward and let our reports available to the public answer any questions people may have. Thank you," end quote. "I can respect that," Greg wrote back. "However, you did state before that you would answer my questions once the case was closed. I am sorry you have decided to go against your word. God bless," end quote. "You are correct," Gummert responded. Quote, "I did agree to answer your questions. So with that, please email me your list of questions and I will answer them. Thank you," end quote. Later that night, at 8:30 p.m., I sent the detective 21 questions about their case against David Crowley. On May 10th, 2016, Detective Sergeant Jim Gummert sent me an email with his 21 answers, along with a few concluding comments. Here are the questions and answers in order. So what we'll do is read the questions and the answers. I wanted to ask Stephen, partly, is this a common thing that you would hear from a citizen in the public to answer some questions relating to a case? And if so, would you answer them? Would you take the time? Or how common is a question, first of all, like that?
I think it's a hard questioning, and to take the time to do that would tell me is that it's worth the time for the detective to answer these, because there are questions. Maybe the detective at that time, whether he's playing which side of the fence, felt maybe it'll help the case, hinder the case. What do these guys have? So it's keep open communications is not a bad idea.
But it's still an inconvenience to the detective, correct?
Well, yeah, sure it is. But look at this case; it's the most serious case that the department's ever had.
And then when the case was closed, I like how Greg was immediate to send the request back by saying, the case is closed now. Are you free to do that? Mm-hmm. And Gummert wrote back right away, "Sorry, we're no longer talking about the case." And that's where Greg did a good job in responding right away by backing him in the corner by saying, well, you did promise me that you would do this.
Sure.
And he just left it. He just said, sorry, you went against your wishes, so sorry about that. So then, now Gummert is placed in kind of painted himself in a corner. Now he's got to answer the questions. So I think Greg, you did that well.
Oh, absolutely. That took a lot of stones.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it was that I was really frustrated by that because we had been waiting and waiting for so long patiently, and I figured, well, okay, if he's not going to stick to his word, that pretty much tells me everything that I need to know. But he proved me wrong. He did stick to his word, and he did not limit this to 21 questions too. That was my fault. We probably should have had like 101 questions. I don't know. I didn't really know. I've never done anything like this. So we had nothing to really go on. I know everybody had questions, and we couldn't fit all of those questions in, but we tried to gather as many questions. And really, the 21 questions, when we talk about that, it's not like it's really 21 questions that I came up with. These are 21 questions that basically the whole Justice for David Crowley and Family group came up with. And what I did is I just picked the top 21 and tried to ask them in a way where if he was under oath, sitting in a courtroom, that he could answer yes or no. And that was, again, some of my fault in doing that, because some of the answers were literally yes or no, and I'm like, I wish he would expand on this. I wish he would expand on that, and we'll get to all of that too. But so I really had no idea what to expect from it. But to be honest with you, even before I had asked him about, would he be willing to talk or anything, I thought he would just pretty much say no, that no, we're not willing to talk, blah, blah, blah. But I think because we did it before the case closed, before he got, this is just a guess, my speculation, before he was told we're not talking about it, because if he was, then obviously back in 2015, he would not have said, yeah, sure, I'll be willing to talk to you, so that was kind of interesting, the fact that in April, he's kind of like, well, the case is still active. I'm unable to discuss your case or any of these questions. And then it's kind of like, yes, he's like, once the case is no longer active, I will discuss it with you. And then in on March 16th of 2016, it kind of changed where it's like, no, we're not talking about it now. And so I feel like if I wouldn't have followed up and said, hey, you already said that you would talk about it, my guess is that he may never have even talked about it or anything. So I kind of feel like that it wasn't really him saying that we would know, and that's why he says we. But our department is no longer talking about it. It was kind of like kind of had the door open there, but that was the only kind of saving grace, or else we probably wouldn't even have these 21 questions to go on. Stephen, as a former officer, I mean, have you ever heard of anything like this? I know you're also a researcher. You are a writer, a bounty hunter, or former bounty hunter, private eye. You've also written an awesome book that everybody should go and check out, The Ultimate Prey: The True Story of the Yosemite Sightseer Murders, and you can order that. You can get it right now on Kindle, $3.99. Get the paperback for $10.89. There's even some used ones if you're really tight due to COVID and everything. You can see there's a few out there like that, but please.
I know, it's amazing. I know.
Buy this new one. Buy the new one right there. Is this the only place people can get the book, Stephen?
No, there's probably 200 platforms. I mean, you can go on to Barnes and Noble, you can go on to Walmart and buy it. Everybody carries everybody's books if they're electronically platforms. Yeah, they can order it. You can order the hard copy too from Walmart because it's all print on demand. So it's just a push of a button.
Yeah, I got to get the hard copy because my book is filled with notes about so much stuff, and we're definitely going to spend some time later on talking more about this case, because this is such a fascinating case. The way that the book was written, reading the book, I was like, this needs to be a feature film. So, but, I mean, have you ever heard anything? Have you ever had any experiences or heard anything about something like this, where there's a case?
You know what? It's with the 21 questions. I mean, your relationship. You open up, line of communications. No, have I anything like I have? Yeah, in some ways, with a case you're working, I mean, you get somebody, it goes back and forth, like I said. Is it place guilt on them? No, but, they'll give you information, and then they say, we'll talk to you, but we'll shut it down. Then we shut it down. And like I said, the case is still open. That's whether you're not going to get anything now is because you guys have put a lot of pressure and with the right things and a lot of good questions they can't answer. If they close this case, it's now freedom of information versus if it's like I said, it's an ongoing case now, which they don't have, like I said, they don't really have to justify to anybody. The DA can say it still looks, let's open this up. We got a question somewhere. They don't have to tell you that question, But you opened that up, Greg, and I think it put him in the corner. I mean, that's like the opening punch. It's fantastic. Yeah, they didn't know what they had. They didn't know what they had back then when they answered you. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Or what you had, what you guys have done. They didn't have that information. Things change every day,
Yeah, it was kind of almost like a bluffing game or something that I felt like we were playing because people kept telling us that we had all of these things, and I know people were contacting me privately talking about things that I had never heard of, and so it was kind of like they figured because they got it that we must have it too. And back in this point, that's another great point. There is when we wrote these 21 questions. We didn't, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we had anything but the 464 photos and the 94 pages of police reports.
I believe that is correct. We just had the photos and the police report, and then we collaborated as a group to get these questions together, and then you communicated directly with him to get the answers, but it was basically coming from the group. And after reading the 94 pages and looking at the photos, we thought in our minds that these 21 questions, if he could answer those, would put a lot of things to bed. And all we were looking for is just some clarity and for him to just answer some of these. And he did. He answered them all. We got the answers. But we have since learned that it opened up way more questions than it did. It didn't really solve anything.
Dan,
it was good. It was well done the way it all worked. But it didn't, we didn't get the answers and say, okay, now we close the book. Now this case is done. We've got the answers, and we can all move on our merry way.
Right.
Yeah, that was just a very bad position at that time, and he probably didn't talk to anybody, or his lieutenant said, yeah, just do this. Or now it's more serious, but that was just meritorial at the time. Now we got a problem.
Yeah,
and it wasn't. Greg wasn't a family member or had any connection with the case. He was an independent investigator from California.
Yeah. Greg. Yeah, you guys did great.
I think if he was willing to talk to me back then, I was kind of thinking, well, maybe they'll create some type of final report like we've seen with several other cases. And then they would just kind of say, look, this was our actual findings. But to my knowledge, they never put anything out there like that. And so this was our one shot at getting something like that for all the hundreds and thousands, possibly millions of people that had questions, that still have questions, new people that are just learning about this case. I hope these 21 questions will help them to create an informed opinion on this case. And we do have Crypt Rick. He is joining us here, so I do want to say hi to Rick. Rick, you may not know Stephen Sanzeri, but I think you know just about everybody else. And we were just chatting a little bit about Stephen's book, and I know you love reading, so I'm definitely going to send you a couple links to this book. I think you'll really get it. It's a murder mystery. I don't know if you've ever heard about the Yosemite Sightseer murders, Crypt Rick, but if you haven't, or if you have, this gives you a totally different view from any other thing that I've read on that case. But just want to say hi to you out there too.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah, perfect. Okay.
Hey, Rick, Steve, hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm sorry I'm late, guys. I was just doing a 2.5-hour interview, and I thought for some reason this was happening at midnight tonight. So when Greg told me, he's like, are you talking? I'm like, what? So I really apologize.
That's okay.
And no, I have not heard of those murders, the Yosemite murders, or whatever you just said, but I would love to read the book.
I think you'll find it fascinating. You'll be fascinated by it. Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm here, though. Go ahead, guys.
All right, Sophia, Catherine, any questions, any thoughts before we get rolling on the actual 21 questions here?
Sophia's always have any.
No?
Oh, Catherine is doing sign language.
I thought for sure she was going to say something because it's like she's always so quiet.
Hi, Sophia. Hi, Catherine.
I don't have any questions.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to reiterate what, I can't remember. I think it was Steve. Whichever one person said this about Greg, I'm telling you, you had some severe cojones to sit there and follow up with, well, you know, you said, you didn't just let it drop. You said you would answer this, and, you know, I'm kind of sorry you just are going to go back on your word. I loved that. You're going to go, you decided to go against your word. Again, kudos to you for taking that step, because when I was reading above going, we believe the time has come to move forward and let our reports answer any questions. It's like, wait, dude, you just told him you're not going to answer anything, and now you won't answer anything because it's open, and now you're not going to answer anything because you've moved on. No. So, kudos.
Yeah, let our reports available to the public. That was another teaser. I was like, wait a minute. All right, how many reports are out there but are not available to the public? So that was another thing that he was kind of teasing us with, and I wonder if that's some of the documents that we've been getting over all of these years. And that's why, you know, Dan, without you creating the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group, man, we would not be here. We would, you know, I don't think we would be in a spot where we're getting all of these documents and photos and all of that stuff. So, you know, that's a big deal. But it's a group effort, it's a team effort, and it's just so nice to have so many people listening to this, watching this, people who are secretly listening and watching, who are encouraging us to keep going forward. It's just so great to see all of that, and so many new people that are coming to this case and just want to know what happened here, and so that they can form their own thoughts on it, not to just, you know, hey, you're either with us or you're against us, like some Sith Lord or something like that. It's just like, here's the evidence, here is the documents, and but people, I just want to kind of make that kind of disclaimer maybe, but to just say, when these 21 questions were created, this was before we had pretty much we only had the 464 photos, the 94 pages of police reports. Dan, I know you ended up getting another 711 photos from the BCA later on. I don't know if that was before this or if that was after this either. I'm not sure.
I believe it was after, but I think at this point we just had that first round of information, and that's why these questions were so important. But one thing I'd like to add before we go on is Sergeant Gummert and the Apple Valley Police also knew that whatever we were getting, we were publishing.
That's true.
Everything was transparent. So now that he's forced to answer these questions on paper, he's got to be sure now that I'm sure he had to get it approved from his superiors and or blessed before it goes out, because he knew we were going to slap this all up over the internet, and we did. So you know, he was kind of backed into a corner, his own corner, but it was I'm sure they had to really answer these questions carefully because of other types of repercussions and innuendos and things people can read into it or not. So they were well aware of us by this time, of course, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we weren't hiding anything. It was a public group. It's still a public group. None of that has changed. None of the rules or anything like that has changed. So it was kind of a very open forum, and that was, you know, I know people have kind of tried to take advantage of that and tried to play games and things based on that, but it's always been like that, and that's pretty much the way, you know, the transparency for this case has always been very important, and we were just hoping that because we were being transparent, that the police, the investigators, would also be as transparent as possible. So that was the goal.
All right, so here's the questions. I will do one at a time, along with the question and the answer, and then we can have a little discussion on that as well, or should I do a couple at a time, Greg?
I think one is good.
Okay. All right, well, let's start off with the one. Remember, this is a collaborative effort. We put all these together, and Greg slimmed it down to 21 and sent them off. Here's question 1. It says, what evidence did you find to prove David Crowley was guilty of a double murder-suicide? The answer from Gummert was one phrase, Minnesota BCA analysis results. That's it.
And that's the 40-page report that everybody can go and read. Now, remember, we didn't have that at the time either, so we couldn't go back and say, wait a minute, we've read the 40 pages, and they don't say that. But you can find that on my website, thegraystage.wordpress.com. I think Dan also has it on uglytruth.info. I believe that it's also there, too, but it's 40 pages. And so this is what they say proves David Crowley guilty right here. So,
but I think the question, Greg, or was it not, is we were expecting to see, 5 or 6 bullet points from Gummert to say the evidence of this, the evidence of X, Y, and Z, the photos of X, Y, and Z, and the laptop that showed X, Y, and Z. Here was what proved him guilty, and his answer was just the BCA analysis results. That's all that he said.
Yeah, because the analysis is not evidence.
No, it's just, so it's a very vague answer. I think that, once again, he got that approved from up above, and to keep things as vague as they could, while at the same time answering your questions, Greg, but didn't give us anything. Now, the second question to that is, how long did it take to come to that conclusion? He responds back by saying it took them several months to send back results. So the answer on question 1 was basically nothing from the Apple Valley Police Department. The evidence came from BCA, which is a state agency, and it took them several months to respond. Our question was directed to you, Gummert, the detective leader, the manager of the investigation department, the detectives. You're the sergeant. What evidence did you find to prove? And he said, well, that agency proved it. And how long did it take for you to come to that conclusion? It took them several months. That was a non-answer. Was it not, Stephen?
Oh, it's painted very broadly. I mean, that's for sure. The first one they answered with the Minnesota BC analysis results, it now directs you to their report. It's one more step, and they can do that. It's like, here it all is. Now you got to petition for that. They may have to release it, but that's what it is. And it took them several months to send back results. How many months did it take? Several, is that 3 or is that 9? So yeah, that's very, it took him, 3 weeks. So it didn't. That's very broad.
Now the second question starts off with saying several reports state body parts such as hands were, quote, missing. Can you clarify as to whether or not body parts were missing from the entire crime scene? Question mark. Now, in parentheses, Greg has, according to Detective Bone, Ranny's entire right arm and shoulder were missing from her arm socket. David's right hand was missing, and so was most of his skull. A majority of Camel's head was also missing, according to Detective Bone. Both of her hands were found to be missing. His answer was parts were missing from the scene.
Ooh.
How much more vague can you get? Does that mean parts, like they went there and the parts weren't there? Because obviously the first, one of the early theories when people read this, so they found them, parts were missing, they were taken off of the crime scene, right? You could interpret that one way.
Well, you guys told, he might have interpreted as rhetorical that you've already answered it for him. You said parts were missing, and and if it was maybe worded differently, so it's kind of rhetorical. Yeah, parts were missing. You already told, so it's not like those, so he might have got you a little on that one,
Oh, believe me, he gets it gets worse.
No, but I mean it's not the answer, but yeah, you see what I'm saying, so.
Yeah, I mean it's such a vague answer that it's like
terrible.
Interpret that so many different ways. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Anything else on that one?
We all have lots of thoughts on that. We went over all that. We've already gone over that part already, but we have all sorts of thoughts. Yeah.
Ladies or Rick, any thoughts?
I just have one thing I want to ask. When they say that, hold on here, parts were missing from the scene, maybe Catherine or somebody can answer me this. Did they ever, in any of the reports, because I haven't got through all of them yet, did they ever talk about, like, where these parts were? Are they assuming the dog ate these parts? Is that what I'm led to believe?
That's the answer to one of the other questions on down the line. But nothing, they were never found.
Okay.
Rick?
Weird.
If they did find any bone pieces or belongings to the victims that were around their bodies, they were collected in a brown paper bag and put in the body bags with each of the victims. And so they had a brown paper bag for Camel, and they had a brown paper bag for David, but they did not have one for Ronnie.
That's weird.
Also, Rick, is Sophia, they didn't test the dog's feces, did they?
No.
No.
Right, so if the dog did this, there would be bone fragments in the feces.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another problem.
So then these missing parts are obviously not what they bagged up. So they would have to be, like you said, parts were missing from scene. They were missing the only logical thing, and I don't want, I mean, we've already kind of spoiled it, so pretty much is what they're going to say is that any of the missing parts were due to this dog, is the way that I would interpret it. But just reading this one, it's kind of like, well, why didn't you say that here? You know, parts were missing, but here's why. I guess maybe I should have had a second question to that, and why? Why were parts missing?
No, he answers exactly that further on down the line. You'll see. Go see answer 2.
Right. No, you did good, Greg.
All right, question 3. The question was, the murder weapon was found near David's left hand. Yet there are many pictures that clearly show David pointing a gun with his right hand. Do you believe David was right-handed or left-handed? The answer from Gummert, right.
And that was a big thing, just to kind of clear up anything about, well, maybe David used his left hand for anything. You know, what they say right here is that he was right-handed. So to me, that pretty much shows, okay, then that's why we wanted to know where the gun was. We spent so many years trying to figure out where the gun actually landed. Not where they said, I wanted a photo. Just to say, the photo does not lie. The photo will show you exactly where the gun landed, where it was found, and then we can go back and say, okay, if David was right-handed, how did the gun get here? How much did the gun weigh? How could it possibly get there? And why didn't police question where the gun was? Because they never questioned the placement of where they found that gun.
When the weapon is discharged and suicide like that to the head, the gun is going to go backwards away from the head, opposite direction. Doesn't go forward; it goes backwards.
Yeah.
Question 4. Were there any latent fingerprints on the blood-smeared wall where it said Allahu Akbar? Gummert's answer was no.
Now, that was a question that was specifically given to me by a fellow researcher that I was kind of privately working, who probably doesn't want to be mentioned, but that was this person's biggest question here. That's what they wanted to know about latent fingerprints. I, at the time, had no idea what latent fingerprints were, but I figured that's a pretty good question. Let's go ahead and ask that. So if someone wants to kind of explain to people like me, I mean, obviously I know now, but for people who are maybe watching this or listening to this who don't know what latent fingerprints are and how important that would be to prove that David Crowley did write Allahu Akbar in blood on the wall.
Yeah, and that was a big point back then, too, because the blood was written on the wall, and they assumed David did it. So one of our questions were back then is, we want to see his left and his right hand and see if they were covered with blood. Well, right hand was missing. Left was there, but kind of in a dried-up state. So the next question was, who wrote the writing on the wall? Obviously, the fingerprints would be there. There'd be no reason for David to use gloves or a latex glove or anything to hide it as far as who did it. So the question was there any fingerprints? The answer is no. Well, does that mean someone used a glove? And if so, more than likely the perpetrator used the glove. David, if he was doing this and going out in a blaze of glory, would have no reason to conceal his identity by writing it. There should be, in my mind, fingerprints all over this wall in the blood that could have been easily lifted and pulled to see who did the writing. Gummert himself says there was none. We couldn't find any fingerprints on that wall, which leads me to believe whoever wrote it obviously used latex gloves or some sort of gloves to begin with to do it, and then either took them with and pitched them, and they were no longer at the scene. So someone other than David did do it. Now we know David's right-handed. His right hand's missing. How would you know, did he do it with his left hand? Some have suspected that the hand was cut off and used with his own hand. Well, in that case, there would be fingerprints left behind if they used David's cut off hands to dip it into the blood to write it. And even that wasn't there. So that was a leading question by us to say, obviously, Mr. Gummert, David didn't write on the wall. So that's not evidence. There is no evidence to show that David wrote anything on the wall. So I think that was a good answer.
And that's correct. But we have to keep in mind too that whether or not I don't believe it was David, but whether or not if it was David, the latent prints are going to be prints that can be captured, and can you find like ridge detail and stuff like that. And so basically he's saying no, there's no ridge detail whatsoever. But we know that something made that. Now, is there smeared DNA or smeared quote-unquote prints or whatever down the wall? We don't know, because they don't really answer the question. They're just telling you that no, there were no latent prints that left any ridge detail, is basically what he's saying.
That were liftable.
That wasn't quite the full answer to the question you were asking.
Right. And
well, out of the...
Go ahead, Sophia.
Sorry, Greg. Out of the samples of DNA that they took from the wall, it only came back as Camel's blood. So not even traces of unknown or traces of David's or anything showed up in those samples.
Right, and the whole thing is with that, and that's very true, but we don't know where they took it. Was it a lot of blood in the section they took it from? Would it have been too much of Camel's blood and not enough of whoever's, even if it was David's hand that was taken and then written, used to make those? We don't know, but unfortunately, we don't even get really good close-up photos of the writing on the wall, which would be great, because if we could see a close-up photo, we might have a better understanding of were there any kind of smears or not.
That's true.
What about the video? Does the video give us...
Not close.
No, not close. And it's not the best quality either.
Yeah.
But
Terrible quality, yeah.
I did hear, Greg, that somebody I'm not sure where I saw this or read it, but somebody was saying that the writing on the wall could have been done by the scarf that was by the bodies, like Camel's scarf. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we know what you're talking about. We just don't know. Could it have been? I think at this stage, just about anything could have.
Okay.
Like, was it a gloved hand? Could it have been a hand wrapped in a scarf? But yet there seems to be some pretty straightforward lines on that wall.
Right,
so I would
thought.
think that a scarf was not used because of just the way the pattern was left.
I agree.
Yeah, and this is, with these 21 questions, anyone that wants to go through it, make sure you cross-reference with the BCA lab results here. This would be item number 11, and they did item number 12, but for some reason that one is not here for whatever reason. But when they did look for any latent prints, when they did testing, any DNA blood testing, that would be specifically related to item number 11, item 11, which matches Camel, does not match David, does not match Rania, would not be expected to occur more than once among unrelated individuals in the world population. So it's a single source DNA that's indicated as female. So, I mean, you could say, well, there's just so much of her blood that if there was any other DNA, whoever did it, obviously it would just kind of override that. But if anyone other than David did this, I think gloves make the best sense.
Well, Greg, I wanted to say, so one thing you're right, like Catherine brought up with ridges, but when blood flow, blood prints, because there's latent prints and what they call plastic prints also, but the latent prints more toward like the oil of the print to the surface or whatever. When it's still latent print transfer to blood. About within 12 hours, you can lose ridges on blood. Yes, and I found that interesting because I looked that up just now. So, so if somebody puts their hand on the wall and tries to draw something, is there a print immediately as soon as they touch the wall? Yeah, there is. But because like a paint or whatever, it doesn't leave the solid latent print like would be oil on glass, which would give a latent print solid. There's another substance in between, is what I'm saying. Yeah, and I thought, that could have been even though they probably did not check it for that, but that's, I mean, it's beside the point in this thing right here with how it was drawn and who did it and whatever. I think that they weren't that good to find that anyway, probably, if there was.
Yeah, and then that just leads back to the thing, okay, then, you know, if this is what they're using, if based on what Gummert is telling us, this is where we're going to find the proof that Crowley is guilty, then this is what we need. In these 40 pages, we should see exactly whatever they're seeing to claim that David Crowley is guilty. And, of course, we didn't have this at that time, but, you know, looking at it, and it's just like, so far, not really seeing it here.
No, not at all.
Further down, the next question of the 21 is question 5. It says, images of the murder weapon were provided to Tom Lydon, Fox News 9 anchor, who I assume filled out the same disclosure form as I did. Yet I did not receive the 3 images that Tom Lydon did, including the image of the murder weapon lying on a living room table, red blood footprints on a hardwood floor. If I file another disclosure request for those specific images, will I receive the images requested? I would also request an image of the murder weapon where it was found. Parentheses, even a censored version. That was the question from Greg, and the answer from Gummert was fill another one out with a specific request, and I will see what I can do.
Wow.
And Dan, you got the 700. So again, we didn't, in the 464 photos that we first got, there was no image of the gun, period, that showed it on that table or anything really. But Dan, when you got the 711 photos, we did get a photo of the gun on that table.
Yes, sitting on a table, like someone set it there to get a photo of it with the cartridge in, with the cartridge out. I think both sides of it, the underside, the front side, it looked like it was just sitting there. But we wanted a photo of where was the gun at the scene? Where was the gun lying when officers arrived was I think what you were asking for there. And they wouldn't give us anything that was graphic in nature. So you were even saying, look, if you need to, you know, scan something out or censor it or blur it out, that's fine. We still want a photo of the gun where it was found when you arrived on the scene. And that, to this day, has never come up. And all he says here is just fill out another form and we'll see what we can do.
Well, I think the one photo that was on Tony Floyd's website is pretty much, as far as I know, that is the one that where the gun was found, where they found it. So I mean, we do have it now. We do have that now, but that only came out since in August, late August or something like that.
So
pretty recent.
So Greg, you guys have evidence the gun was on his left side?
Yes, we have a photo that shows where the gun was. Now we haven't been able to authenticate that photo yet, as far as I know. I've asked, and I know Sophia has probably done the exact same thing too. Is we've asked, you know, to make sure that because there was a fake document floating out there, we also wanted to know, are there fake photos that are floating out there too?
Sure. There you go.
Real photo? And it's a one-word answer, so we're still waiting for that answer. But I would love for them for the Apple Valley Police or the Apple Valley City Attorney, whoever needs to make that call, to just confirm the photo that you have seen. Because they looked at the fake document and they were able to quickly recognize the document was fake. They've looked at the photo. They can quickly tell, is this a real photo or is this not a real photo? It should be pretty clear for them to you know, tell us yes or no. That's it. You know, we're not asking them to do anything more than that. But I haven't heard any answer about that yet.
Okay.
And typically with a crime like this, when the media the press release and the media gets a hold of it, usually the weapon is like the first thing you see, and now here it's six years later, it's the first time we see the weapon.
Right.
In its original spot, which I just thought seemed unnatural, I guess. It didn't seem normal that you have to wait all this time to get to see where the gun was. And they said, oh, here's the gun sitting on a table. We're like, well, yes, we can see the gun sitting on a table, but where was it when you came in? Oh, I don't think a photo exists of that. How can that be?
Yeah. And it was, we asked this question because Tom Lydon was showing that photo. Like I said, there were at least 3 photos that he was showing that we didn't have at that time. So that's all we wanted. If Tom Lydon gets it, we should get it too. I think that's fair.
Right.
And even if he would have answered by saying, you know what, there may have been a mistake, you didn't receive them all, but he just said, fill out another form, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
Yeah, and I think you did. I know because I never got the 700. I never got the 711. Of course, you did that with the BCA, so that was a different department too. So I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
On question number 6, it goes on to say, is it possible, based on evidence found at the crime scene, Camel was shot first and Randy was not immediately shot after? The answer from Gummert, it is possible. Next question was Randy's blood or flesh found on Camel's body? The answer is no.
How can that be? If the bodies are where they say they are, which they're very cryptic and not to really say where the bodies were found, that hey, this is where they were shot, right? They say, oh, this is where we saw the bodies. But they're very cryptic when they say, they don't say exactly, okay, David was killed here, Camel was killed here, Rania was killed here. If Rania was killed and landed on Camel's body, there should be some blood, there should be some flesh, right? There should be something there that mixed. But they say no. So that's another reason why a lot of people thought, okay, somebody's body was probably moved. Rania's body was probably moved and staged there and staged. So when the police would walk in, they would see this young 5-year-old daughter's body on top of her mom's, furthest away from David, and hey, it must be David. Staging.
All right, question 7. Early media reports suggested Daniel Crowley Jr. went to David's house on December 26th or December 27th, 2014. However, in police reports, it is clear Daniel Crowley Jr. stated he was at his brother's house on December 28th. Was Daniel ever asked about the various dates as to when he went to the Crowley's residence? The answer from Gummert is no. Now, Stephen, this may be a good question for you as a detective. If the 2 dates in the press releases are wrong, or the media reports, and then the official statement was a 3rd date, would that raise suspicion to you as a detective?
Oh, sure. I mean, but there can always be the answer is a typo. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's always an answer, but yeah, it would raise suspicion, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes you wonder, what else did they not ask Daniel Crowley? What else did they not ask? Because if they're not asking about this, I mean, like you said, maybe it's not that big of a deal. He was frazzled, obviously. People were probably hounding him, calling him to ask to answer questions. Daniel, and this is Daniel Crowley Jr., doesn't really answer much. David's dad doesn't really answer much. I've never heard anything publicly from David's sister, ever.
No. And I think we'll go into that later on with the goal we talked about. But you can only answer it once for everybody. And the second time is going to get questioned. Everybody's answer. Everybody gets a mulligan on the first one. Oh, we made a mistake. Oh, God will do this. Second one, no. And they're on their second life.
Right.
That's how I look at it. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, what Daniel Crowley Jr. is saying, these presents were there from December 28th until the day the bodies were found on January 17th. 2015. So that's a long time, obviously.
Sure.
For a, you know, I don't know. I mean, with the $14,000 check there, if you leave it there, you know, if it's put there on December 28th, it was obviously filled out at least on December 28th, if not earlier, by David's dad. David's dad at some point has to notice the check doesn't clear. A couple weeks, okay, you know, maybe. But we're talking about almost three weeks here. The check hasn't cleared. Sophia, I know you've done more than I have on the phone records. You know, is David's dad calling David to check up on this? Hey, I haven't heard from you guys. You know, I mean, is there anything like that? Is after December 28th, or that kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, there's a couple phone calls from the Crowley Investment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not exactly sure if that's Dan Crowley Sr. or Dan Jr.
Mm. Okay.
And then there is from the mother, too. I don't think I saw anything from the sister, or Camel's family either.
Yeah, it seems like the sister communicated more through David's email, but it also seemed like even in November of 2014, David wasn't answering her messages, so maybe she had kind of given up way back then. Hard to say.
Well, I mean, it would be nice to be able to know for certain, and maybe we will find out soon enough.
Okay, question 8. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Question 8, it says, is it true that police went to the Crowley residence on 3 separate occasions? Once after the bodies were discovered, a second time after a mushroom bullet was discovered, page 51 of the PDF, and a third time on February 18th, 2015, when they found a bullet hole near the living room ceiling? The answer is yes. Police went 3 times to the residence. Is that also common, Stephen, from your past work as a detective?
Oh, yeah, I think 3 times is pretty light, Dan. I think I'd be spending a lot of time in that place, and I'd be, you know, patrol car outside for a week and a half. I mean, you know, no, more than 3 times. There's more. I would say they'd visited more than that, probably. I mean, they swept this thing up pretty quickly.
No, I would say, and maybe it's. Oh, go ahead.
Is it, I guess, I think what Dan is asking, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it normal to go back 3 times because you found something, because somebody has found something new?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, no, like any kind of evidence, sure, you're going to go back for that reason, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's, even in this latest case, the Kyle Rittenhouse case, you know, they missed a couple bullets, or a couple bullet shells there, too, and it's like, wow, how often does this happen?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, if somebody calls you and there's exculpatory evidence like we spoke about or whatever, that can influence the case, you have to go back.
Does that, I mean, is that a thorough investigation when you have to be called back to the home 2 different times, you know, and you know, told about these bullets, that if you weren't called back by people that are not in law enforcement, then, you know, you would never even know about these? I mean, I know police...
That's a loaded question, but yes, and no. No, absolutely. You know what? I mean, first off, this is a crime scene, and I don't know what, you know, they got the cleaners and they do whatever, and like other cases we talked about, Philip Marshall and stuff like that, but then they check on, you know, people are still watching and things, you know, for them to go back in and somebody finds something is, you know, like you said, you know, no way you'd miss an 8-foot ceiling, that hole in the ceiling. You just wouldn't. And people that were let back in, I mean, it's a you know, yeah, you got to go back in, but you know, we know that they went back in for a different purpose.
Well, that's the weird thing. Okay, the bodies were found on the 17th. They leave. They're called back 2 days later for a bullet, for 1 bullet, item number 53. You would think at that point at least they would look up and say, well,
oh sure, oh yeah,
a bullet that rolled out of the living room carpet. Maybe we should look around and see if there's anything else. But they still miss the bullet hole right above their head in the living room ceiling.
Greg, I don't mean to interrupt you. I get a little excited. I apologize. Like I said earlier, 10 podcasts ago, this is the sloppiest cover-up murder scene I have ever seen, witnessed, talked about, anything. Whatever. And it was so sloppy, and so there's so much that they think that was so sloppy, everything would be covered up and whitewashed, and it wasn't. You guys are picking out little things and this and that, and they just took it for granted. This thing's a hit. It wasn't, it was done by somebody else. David didn't do it. One guy is not this sloppy. And David, you look at him, he's military. This guy's spit polished. He's got sloppy? Are you kidding me? It would have been 3 shots himself and clean and no suffering. This guy was not a madman that was possessed by Lucifer. Come on. You know what? That's why you guys, what you're doing. And the bullets, they have to start, they've had to backtrack. And letting those guys in and all that stuff, we know who was in there. Yeah. It's definitely, it was a smorgasbord.
Stephen, can I ask you a question in regards to the cleaners? Are they supposed to patch up any bullet holes in the crime scene? So
you know what? I don't know. I've never even worked with them. Those kind of people. Okay. I always hear about the stories when they come in like Men in Black and they sweep the place and erase everybody's brains. No, I don't know. I know that, they have target things in there. They probably track them. They know what kind of computers they probably, they know what to take right away. And who's gonna interrupt them while they're doing that? But the cleaners, and a thing like this, cleaners, I don't know. I don't know. You know what? And I'm not trying to be prejudiced or anything, but if they're paying these minimum wages to our people that come over from the border, I'm not going to discuss it. They're not going to look up. They just do their thing, and like any maid or anybody, I don't know who's the cleaners,
Okay. Well, I was just trying to get some clarification.
Yeah, I couldn't. That's a tough call,
Well,
yeah.
That would have been a great thing is if we ever could get a hold of the cleaners to say, hey, did you see a bullet hole up there? Because there were several people in that house cleaning, and it'd be interesting to see if any of them saw that, even though the police.
Well, that goes to the biohazard cleaners, like on that movie Sunshine Cleaners or whatever. Is people do that? So to sell that house, and you have to disclose in real estate law. Somebody, there's a death in the house, that kind of thing. Is that place has to be, just gone through bottom to top to be cleaned? Is who did that one? It was a pretty messy scene.
Yeah. Well, they completely redid the whole house later on.
Oh, did they?
This was another reason why it was it didn't make sense that the feds or the DHS would be involved in this, because my feeling is, and I could be just a guess, if they were in the house, they probably would have saw that bullet hole.
You know what? The feds be involved. We don't know. Do you know for sure the feds are involved? That was that thing from what's his name, and I think they covered this thing up at a pretty low level. Just there's nobody above them that's going to do anything. It's almost, like I said, it's a whole other step to go around this and get them on the front page. I don't know. My problem, like I said, is Dan, all you guys' motive. What's the motive for doing this? Because we know David didn't do this. So what's the motive? Bad script deal in Hollywood, $40 million. Egos, pretty messy for egos. The gray stage, all that stuff. Yeah, his movie. Sure, I could see, it could be a shadow conspiracy, black ops kind of deal. And they hired some monkeys to do it.
Question 9. Was water found in any of the toilets in the Crowley residence? How did the family dog, Paleo, survive for 3 weeks? The answer, Gummert says yes. See answer to question 2.
That's what I was talking about when you were asking me, Rick, because Gummert is saying that here he's implying, and so we therefore are to infer that it was Paleo. He survived by eating the body parts.
Oh, okay, I see.
Parts missing from scene. And so, yeah, so I guess, is he implying that, the dog was drinking out of the toilets, or, it's kind of left open, but, or did it just, I don't know, can it survive for 3 weeks without water from those toilets? So there's a lot of things that I think about now that I wish I would have done, wish I would have asked a little differently, but I was hoping they would give me more. I felt like the simpler I kept these questions, the more that they would give me, and that didn't turn out to be true.
Well, yeah, because he's not lying. When you're asking the question, was water found in any of the toilets, and he says yes. I mean, if the lid is down, there's going to be water in there. But he didn't specify as to what condition the water was. Was the lid up? Were the lids down? Was one up, one down? He doesn't specify anything. He just says, yes, there was water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was purposely trying to write these not, so it didn't seem like I was trying to trick him or anything into any answers. And, so that was my approach on it. That, I wasn't trying to trip him up into, oh, well, you said this, but, with this or whatever. I was trying to make it as simple as possible. So, yeah, it's not really much there.
Stephen, is that how you guys are trained to answer questions? You just answer directly and without explanation, the simplest answer?
Oh, let me digress one question to answer Greg really quickly. A while back, so many podcasts ago, we looked it up, what a dog needs to survive for water and all that kind of stuff. And so, the dog did get water, and it did survive. To answer your question, say that again.
I said, are you guys trained to answer questions very succinctly? Yes, no explanation, don't expand. Just keep it simple.
You know what? To a certain point, but I was only detective for a short time, and I didn't have cameras in my faces or a big case like this. And you know what? That would have been above my pay grade if I was there 10 years. And being a small department and stuff. You know what? You're dealing with a sergeant. I don't know. I mean, he's handling it to whatever his level. He's being very broad and brief. To answer for this, I think Greg got a lot of information, and I think he got his goal, his mission, is because it's turned it into, no, we don't want to release. It's turned forward to now. It looks like to me, like I said, we'll talk about is it open case. So to answer that, I'm kind of surprised that Greg got even anything answered. He did, I mean, really, this is, and no, it's not normal all the time, but they respected him enough to answer his questions, and they were fair questions.
He's basically saying,
we're coming up on 50 minutes. You said to let you know.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so he's basically saying that the dog, this is how the dog lived for 3 weeks. So he is verifying the 3-week theory, and this is it. This is what the dog had. And so it kind of goes back to the, obviously, if I could ask 22 questions, the 22nd question would have been, did you test those dog feces? I did not. I don't know why I didn't include that here, but I should have included it. There's a lot that I should have included.
Question 10 is Chris Klein, spelled 3 different ways, last name. Do you know when a neighbor called the Apple Valley Police Department to report a, quote, suspicious person in the Crowley Residence on January 19th, 2015? Gummert response, yes.
Yeah, so this is where, this was kind of a test question, and he kind of did exactly what I hoped he wouldn't do, which was just answer, yes. And so it's kind of like, to him it may not be a big deal to answer yes, but obviously, these are very detailed questions. There's a lot here, and so if he's just going to answer yes to me with any of these questions, it's going to tell me it's possible that I may infer a lot of different things from that, and I did. And so at this point, reading this, I was very, very frustrated at him frustrated at myself, and more frustrated at myself because of the way that I asked these questions, and because there was a lot here that I wanted to know about, and obviously, pretty much, this made anything about January 19th, 2015 at that point. I know we've done a whole show on it later on, but I was hoping he would give me something here. Give me a little bit here, okay? But it's like, nope, you're not going to.
And we didn't. And Greg, we didn't know the time at this point when you asked this question. Later we did get to see that 911 report from the police report showing that it was, I think it was 12:50 p.m. or something. But at this point we didn't know. And we know the police were called for a suspicious person on the 19th. We also know the cleaners are there cleaning because they found the bullet on the 19th. But when was the suspicious person? And so I think what we're trying to get at with this question was this before the cleaners came? Was it in the middle of the night? Was it after the cleaners left? What time of day? And so your question was, do you know when a neighbor called? And he wrote back, yes. Now later we find out that it was around 1 p.m., just after noon on that day, which is also very strange. But we wanted to get a feel for what all went on the 19th. At 9 o'clock that morning, I was creating a Justice for Facebook for a Crowley page on the 19th. The cleaners were there. The police went there to find that bullet, but they also were there again on the 19th when the suspicious call came in. So they were there twice. A lot went on that day.
Yeah, and this kind of, this is where it was like, okay, his one word answer tells you so much here about, okay, they don't want to talk about this. And so this was a big red flag back then, something that I just noted and said, okay, there must be something very special about this date, and there definitely is. We could do, Dan, maybe one or two more, and then we can kind of wrap this episode up if you want.
Oh, can I say something really quickly, 30 seconds, 20 seconds?
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Real quickly, in that letter, November 1st, 2021, I was reading through it and such, and how they're trying to cover their butts and how leaving things open. Right now, basically you guys got a nice open case, not a closed case. So whenever the move is made, they have to respond to that because it's not a court case, and that if something happens, they have to answer for it. So I think you're in a good position.
Question 11. The suspicious person was Chris Klein. How was Chris Klein identified as the suspicious person the neighbor was referring to? The answer from Gummert, unknown. Remember, they just got a call that there was a suspicious person. When they got there, no one was there. No vehicle, nothing. So we know now that the suspicious person was Chris Klein. But back then, we were asking Gummert, how did they know who it was? And so he writes, unknown.
That's
a big deal.
Yeah, and that seems, I don't know, that doesn't seem truthful to me. Doesn't seem like a truthful answer. So if I were to look at any of these questions, anything, unknown, really? You guys didn't know? Of course you knew. How do you find a suspicious person without knowing how to identify that person? You have to know.
Well, now I'm really suspicious of Chris Klein because, this is, for some reason, this never even sunk in my head that he was the one who was there on the 19th of January. But yet he's the one in February who makes the call to the detectives and says, oh, you guys missed a hole in the scene. And I know this is just way off topic, but Chris Klein is playing a bigger part here than I realized. If he's there on the 19th, why didn't he notice the bullet hole? Why did it take an entire month for him to all of a sudden now see it?
Well, I think Klein did notice it on the 19th, and it was the cops who were trying to connect with him. From this point, they're the ones that called or that left a note for Klein. Klein called them back. So Klein didn't really contact them until they found him. basically, I guess.
Oh, okay. Okay, so in February, it was just a matter of playing catch-up then.
Yeah, it was kind of like,
okay, great.
yeah, they were like,
you.
hey, call us. And so then Klein called them. Yeah, so they had located him, but you're right, Klein didn't offer any of this and say, hey guys, there's a bullet hole here or anything, but Klein didn't know that they didn't know either. There's no way Klein, there shouldn't have been any way that Klein would know what the police knew and didn't know at that point. If Klein knew that the police didn't know about this until February 18th, then he should have let them know, because that would have been something new. But because Klein just started talking about it, when he's talking to these cops, it kind of seemed like Klein had also thought that maybe the police did know about it. Reading the 94 pages of police reports, that's the impression that I got, is that Klein was talking about things that he already thought that the cops knew, and the cops are kind of probing him as this is going on. But it's weird that they're, talking with Klein. They spend a lot of time trying to find who Chris Klein is, but with a lot of these other people that are involved, there's not much mention of it. So what makes Klein so different, so special, if it's not that bullet? Item 57.
All right, so 12, last question for the episode today, and this is a good one. Chris Klein stated that he was in the house with Dan Crowley Sr. and Dan Jr., even though the neighbor apparently only reported one, quote, suspicious person. Dan Sr. denied being in the house with Chris Klein. Parentheses, he told me he was not aware of the bullet hole and had not gone into the house with Klein, claims Detective Sean McKnight. So the question is, do you know if it was ever discovered who was telling the truth and who was not? Gummert's response was no. This may be a question for Stephen also with his background. We get more anomalies here, but it's more of a question of follow-up. Is it normal procedure to follow up on these things that don't make sense from a detective's point of view? Or are they just trying to get the most important stuff and not this small, meaningless information?
You know what, Dan, good question. A lot of cops are lazy. I hate to say it, so it's what you turn over rocks or not. But the thing that bothers me related to that is number 14 of these, Greg asking about if he saw the hole in the living room ceiling. And he said he saw it, but unknown of the exact date. Either he saw it by himself and logged it, or he was there and he would remember that date. And it was logged when that was found. So it goes, who's telling the truth? 14 answers, 12, how do you don't remember a piece of evidence like a bullet in a homicide?
Right.
You don't log it. You don't remember. Look back. Did Joe Patrolman find it? Okay, you were there. Okay, put that date at least, but don't lie about it. You saw it, but you don't remember the date. Are you shitting me? Oh my God. Really. So sorry to jump ahead, Dan, but 12 equals 14.
Yeah.
It does. I'm sorry. Wow. That was a good question, Greg. 14.
But the overarching question here is, when you're talking to a witness on a case like this, and he was in the house, and he said, who are you in the house with? And he says, I was in the house with Dan Jr. and Dan Sr. Basically saying, I was in there with David's brother and his dad. Another detective interviews the dad and says, were you in the house with Chris Klein and Dan Jr.? No, I was never in the house with Chris Klein. He basically said, I don't know who that even is. I wasn't in the house with him. So the question is, why did Chris Klein say he was in the house with the father, which evidently was never asked? Why would he say that? So now we get the story of who's telling the truth and who's not. And I'm saying, even regardless of the bullet hole in the ceiling, they can't even get right who was in the house with whom.
Sure. Oh no, absolutely. That's why it's such a CF cluster, is that you got people bodies in and out. You got this. You got a messy crime scene. Well, who goes into a house like that afterwards? a friend, neighbor, family, or whatever. Nobody does. I mean, who was trying to cover up what? They made a mistake somewhere there. It got too much attention post murders.
And the good thing the good thing here is we get Detective Sean McKnight actually doing some follow-up by following up with Dan Sr. Were you in the house with Chris Klein? And he says, no, I did not go in the home with Klein. Well, now I get an officer actually doing his job, following up.
Sure.
And it doesn't make sense. And now there's no additional follow-up, following that rabbit hole or following that trail.
Sure.
Not saying there's any suspicion involved, but just saying you're still trying to dot your I's and cross your T's, right?
Oh, well, these guys are liars anyway. They're murderers. Chris Klein is going to implicate, Dan Sr. because it shows credibility. It shows a rite of passage. Hey, he was in there, whatever. It's my word against his. You know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of like, hey, the family's concerned. Hey, this backs our play. We're in there. Look at the family's in there. Nothing's wrong. And who's lying, who isn't lying, I don't see the father going there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. He said that just to get credibility.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. That's like a key to the house. Who's the closest one? The father. Let's get him in there. That's what I'm thinking. I mean, and then McKnight gets shut down after that. He's onto something maybe.
Yeah, and this is kind of where, out of all of the officers on the reports that I've read, I really appreciate McKnight and Cloak and Nose. Here you've got these two officers who find things, point things out. Why wasn't it followed up? Here he is. He's saying, okay, I'm showing you that there's a discrepancy here. So, kind of keep throwing you some breadcrumbs, but yet nobody follows up with it.
Yep, that tells a big answer, I think, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, why not follow up on it? It's like, okay, they didn't follow up on Dan Jr.'s. Okay, maybe he got the dates wrong or whatever. But I mean, this is something very different because they're talking about a bullet that they're going to try to tie to David Crowley. I kind of expected more, unless they wanted to kind of brush it over. Then that would make sense, right? If we don't ask, then we don't have to worry about getting the wrong answer. So that was my fear, and that's still kind of my fear, is that they didn't ask a lot of questions, they didn't test a lot of things, like item 34, because they didn't want to know what the answers were. They were really, and all of this just kind of shows they were just kind of going through the actual motions. But I think Dan brought up a great point. It's like the detective did follow up on that question. He didn't have to follow up on it, but he did. So that's another thing. Well, why, there's certain things that they do follow up on, other things that they really don't, other things that they brush over, and it's a CF, like you said, Stephen. It's a cluster.
And it's almost like every time when they follow up on something and then they find out that, that's going to actually either prove a point they were trying to make wrong or it's going to lead down another rabbit hole, they just walk away. Okay, leave it.
You know what? But now that they're shutting everything down, because I think it is considered an open case, everybody's going to be blocked from everything until lawsuits filed in Apple Valley's now, like I said, above the fold in the local paper. And, people love dirty police corruption stories, man. They get a lot of attention.
Well, do we want to get some final thoughts from everybody and then kind of shut this one down?
Sophia and Rick have been real quiet, so they should get a chance.
I'm listening.
Yeah, I know. Rick is probably taking all of this in. I know Rick has spoken with us, and he's kind of researching this and looking into it. So, Rick, what are your first impressions of what you've heard today?
My first impressions of this whole case is that it just doesn't make sense. I don't know how else to put it. It's just I don't understand when I'm reading, and I'm doing what everybody recommended me to do. Everybody's telling me to go read everything myself, look at the reports myself, so that's exactly what I'm doing. And I just don't understand this investigation at all. Like, things that should have been tested were never tested. There's samples that they have of blood that's from other places of the house and never tested. They never did any, like, the string test to try to figure out where the bullets came from, like the directions and all of that. And it's just, every time I keep reading more and more into these files, I just keep getting more and more questions. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's my thought where I am. I'm just trying to figure it all out, and I'm getting answers on some things and getting tons of questions on the other end. It's crazy.
Yeah. Sophia, what do you think about these 12 questions that we've gone through so far?
Well, I mean, it's frustrating because he doesn't give very clear answers. It's just like yes, no. Refer back to question number 2, and it's like, okay, I mean, I'm glad you guys did this. This was before I came to the group, so I am glad that you were able to get the questions asked. It's just, I don't know. I mean, were you trying to make it simple for him to answer? Or I'm just wondering why these questions were phrased like this. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. We're trying. I was trying to make it simple so that he could answer or not answer. Trying to gauge not only his answers, but to gauge how well he would answer those questions. And so I think people can make their own judgment on that. I have my own. Very frustrated, basically, with the answers that I got, and like I said, there's a lot of things that I wish that I would have done or would have asked. Maybe not limit it to just 21, but yeah, there was a lot of the frustration. But my personal thing was to make it so that he could answer yes or no. So anytime that he answers yes or no, and I'm still wanting more, I take that as my fault in the way that I asked the question or the way that I phrased the question, and maybe I should have broke down those questions to kind of, but I also didn't want to try to trip him up, or, I also knew at that point that they didn't want to answer any questions, so I didn't want to we can't answer that question. So I did try to kind of make it like, if he was on a witness stand, and all they have to do is answer yes or answer no. And so that was kind of the goal. And I think a lot of that, I did fail, and I did fail with a lot of the things. I think we asked the right questions, maybe not in the best way. And but I was kind of hoping against hope, kind of to just say, well, maybe he'll throw in a little more. And at the very end, which I know we'll cover in a future show, he gives his reasoning for why he answers a lot of this yes and no. So stay tuned for that, or you can read the book and learn more.
Do you think that if we sent maybe 10 questions to Apple Valley now, that they might answer them? Not requesting any paperwork or anything like that, but just...
You're saying maybe we put together 10 questions off these questions?
Well, yes. I mean, like 10 questions that we have after reading everything, now that we have more information.
Sure. Listen, pretend this is a court, and I go back to Dr. Dan at number 14. I love this. Listen, first off, Stones, I'm the guy that said it to Greg. You don't even go backwards, apologize for anything. You got more information anybody could have had. And 14, here it is, number 14, Greg Fernandez, Jr. Did you see the bullet hole in the living room ceiling on January 17th, 2015? Gummert, I saw it, unknown of exact date. Now listen, before you answer that, you might thumb through the file of the case and see where Joe, detective, saw the bullet from the maid who saw this, and Mr. Mustard, whatever it was, and the broomstick. And you know what? It's not really difficult to that a very important piece of evidence, such as a bullet in a murder scene, is not going to be logged with the date and time. Okay, so it doesn't take a lot of effort to answer that and either confirm it was that date or no, it was 3 hours later and I was on the shitter. Okay, all right, it doesn't matter. My point is that really, I mean, I wish I was Rittenhouse's defense attorney. They're doing a great job, and I love the judge. But you know what? There's a point where sensibility and logic, you know what? Good old horse sense. I mean, I don't care what the law is, man. You know what? I mean, wow. You know, but 14 is. I mean, that answer because I'm not jumping ahead because that's the last where we stopped. But
no, that's a great teaser for next month's episode, actually. So.
I mean, come on. You know, and that's the thing. And there's a case in San Diego, like I told Greg, where they found a gal hung, but her hands were tied behind her back over a 2-story balcony in an apartment complex. How do you tie your hands behind your back and then jump off? And all the departments covered it up, and then including a kid I worked with, John Frillman, I love dearly. He's the chief of Coronado, just retired. It was in his backyard, and PI got involved and said, this is a homicide, and now they got open. It's a big mess. So, I mean, I don't understand why law enforcement, you know what, there's too many smart people out there like you guys, and there's plenty of information, access to your fingertips on the internet, and throw half of it out and the rest is good. I mean, you know, they make a lot of cases done like this. I mean, you know, like you got great information ahead of time. You're not going to see much now, and like I said, I have an idea how to get it. So, a great job, great job, guys, today.
Thank you, Stephen.
Sure. Catherine.
I don't have anything to add that everybody else hasn't already said, but I will
sorry.
No, it's great. I mean, you guys have covered all the bases, but I will say that the next one, like Stephen keeps bringing up that one question, I think our entire show is going to be on that one question because we all have a lot to say about it.
I mean, yes and no is you know, is an answer. I mean, you know, heading north isn't a plan; it's a direction. Okay, so. This here, you know, that's the same thing here. I saw it, unknown exact date. Wow, you know, I mean, this is where, I mean, this is where the attorney gets involved for whomever hires that attorney. And you know what? They'll tear this thing apart. Really.
Well, and here's the whole thing. He wasn't lying. It's not a lie.
No. No.
He didn't answer your question, but he didn't lie. So.
I don't recollect. You know what?
It's probably what, if you got him on the witness stand, probably what he would say, right? I mean, that's on.
No, he would re-answer it after he got his notes. He's just saying basically is that unknown exact date. He's just saying is that, you know what? Ask me again. You know, it's like I don't recollect. Oh, you know.
Right. Exactly. I was just gonna say. I can't.
Yeah. I mean, it's like yeah. I mean, it's asinine. It's asinine. You know?
I mean, yeah, to say that you don't know, like, what day that you saw it, yeah, that's a pretty big deal, I would say.
Yes, why didn't you answer, you know, you had access to that date. Why are you playing games? You know, if you know, it's not like, you know, when you still...
answer. Yeah, I mean, we sent these questions off, and he had a lot of time to think about it, to get it approved by the higher-ups and everything. So we went through all of that, and again, the main thing for me was, to be honest, to think, okay, if I was in his spot, what type of questions would I want, you know, asked or answered, or, you know, I don't want trick questions. I never wanted to try to trick him up because I wouldn't want somebody to ask me those questions, which people have. They purposely will ask you questions so they can get a sound bite, or so they can kind of just take part of your answer, or take your answer out of context. So,
exactly, you're right.
You know, the main thing for me was to make sure that because he's willing to even answer these questions, he doesn't have to answer these questions. He doesn't owe us any. He doesn't owe me anything. He doesn't.
Yeah, but you know, but the point is, look at what you did, and now they're back in the corner, and they've left the case open for additional homicide suspects, and that's what they're saying. I read all the stuff, and that's what they're saying. Now they don't give you any information because you're so close, you're probably going to make this case, and they know that. Like I said, they don't have to give the public a reason why they all said it's not a cold case, and now we think we might have something. Hey, just your pressure alone. I mean, listen, this is the best thing you ever did. They made a move. This is an open homicide investigation. It wasn't, when you guys started this thing, it was pretty much in the cabinet. Come on, you gotta look, I'm looking at it that way, guys. And maybe it's good I haven't been around for a while because I keep up with Greg and we talk, but I'm able to come back in and see the progress.
Yeah, and Greg, you keep kind of, almost apologizing for your questions. Don't. They were great questions.
Don't.
And here's the thing.
Yeah, Greg, come on. Greg, man up. Greg, man up. You did so fucking good, man.
They were great questions, but the reality is he asked and he answered. He didn't lie. However, you were kind of hoping that maybe he would expand, but they don't. It's kind of like you asked him like it would be in a court of law, and in a court of law, you don't expand. You answer yes or no. End of story.
Yeah, simple. So, that's it.
I think it was great. Even by his yes or no answers, we have a better understanding. Thanks to you.
Yeah, absolutely. God, don't apologize. Yeah, you got it nailed, man. Like I said, this is now an open investigation. Exculpatory evidence. Anything to change and fix whatever with the case, they have to accept. You just hold it back. Don't give them anything yet, but you have to start taking stuff. It's an open case. You're a citizen, has a right to give witness statements and evidence that you believe might have something to do with the case. Yeah, you got all that loaded in your on your bandero.
I do want to finish up. I'm going to do a little screen share because I've been talking to Crypt Rick about this, and I do think that because Crypt Rick does, and Rick, I want you to plug your channel too. Because I know you do, you've been doing a lot of great work there. And when I think about guests, and I know you're always looking for some great guests, Stephen Sanzeri would be an awesome guest for you, brother.
Can you help me set this up?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can. I'm going to bring on Stephen. Can you kind of let people know about your book? I want to hear some of the background. I have so many notes, Stephen, so many questions about this, but I think Crypt Rick, he's just started his channel, just started doing this, and he's done an awesome job. And I just look at what he's done, and I know you would be a great guest on his show. So if you can kind of let us know a little bit about your book and everything, and then that will give Rick kind of a little background about it.
Oh no, thanks, Greg. And Crypt Rick, welcome. I've kind of caught on what you're doing too, and we're doing a good thing.
Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you. I'm a former police officer out of the Bay Area, and I became a bail bondsman. And you do your own bounties, and I bailed this guy out of Tuolumne County, California, and it was right when the 1999 Yosemite murders, sightseeing murders occurred on Valentine's weekend. And so I bailed this guy out, and he jumps on him, and I start chasing this guy, and the FBI can't find the girls, and then they find them murdered a month later, and another one murdered a month later after that. And so I chased this guy all around the country to Alabama, and I arrested him. And it's about the FBI, how they tried to, have me stop my case and everything. And this guy became the #1 manhunt in Alabama, and that was just the beginning. And so I worked with the family to try to prove there was others involved. There wasn't one person. And so that's what it's about. But it has a backstory. About 5 years earlier, I was indicted as a bounty hunter and looking at state prison, and it was set up, and we proved it. And so it was my second time with the biggest murder case in the nation. And so that's what happened, and I'm proud to say, I told Greg I can't name it, Rick, but I just shot a three-part documentary, not all of it, about the Yosemite case, and we did some shooting in Yosemite and Modesto 2 months ago. And so I'm going to be one of the 3 platforms coming up, and probably in January. So the book kind of led to a documentary, and it's about first one about one guy, Kerry Stainer, didn't do it alone. So there's a question with that. So it's an interesting story.
Oh, for sure. I would love to get you on as a guest to talk about this.
Sure. Yeah, and it goes also, just so you know, Rick, look up Mark Archuleta and National Coalition for Men and his murder up there in Mariposa just recently. And he just had a case, and it was a conservatorship, and Ronnie or Jerry Cox was just on Dr. Phil. Mariposa has been a very corrupt county, and it goes all the way up to the White House. And then there's Inslaw, and when Hillary Clinton was with Rose's Law Group, how it led to Mariposa with the Contras, and a lot of the first cocaine in the 70s and early 80s was distributed out of Yosemite Park. There's a big history up there. Yeah, so I didn't know you go into that there, Rick. It leads into before that. And when the Queen of England was up there and 3 Secret Service guys were killed, and Mariposa was involved in that. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff on that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Real quickly, great video on YouTube. Type in Mariposa corruption and look at, there's a video for 20 minutes. 2020 went in there. And Tom Jarrow and Hugh Downs and everybody did a special about it and how it's all controlled with drugs and everything. And that's on YouTube.
All right. And what's it called on YouTube again? I'm bringing it up right now.
Type in Mariposa corruption, and you'll see probably see a thumbnail and it says Ketty Lodge or something on there. You'll see a guy, kind of a heavy-set guy in a blue shirt. That's 20-minute video, and 2020 went in there when they found all this out, how corrupted it was. And that's what led to my case and the Yosemite case, and it's still going on. And they murdered this attorney. By the way, Mark Archuleta was killed in Crestview, right, at his home. When he answered the door, a guy gunned him down. A week later is when the son of Judge Salas was murdered in New Jersey, when Salas just took the Epstein accounting part of the mediation. So he said it was the same, and then he found him dead in his cabin up there from suicide. So it was the same shooter in a UPS on the train and went back and killed Judge Salas' son, wounded the husband. She wasn't there. So that's how Mariposa is related, and that's a fact. They say it was the same guy. Why did Mark Archuleta get killed the day after day before there was going to be a hearing? So it's a big deal. It's pretty heavy.
I'm going to definitely watch this.
Yeah, check it out. But anyway, I don't mean to rant for you, but it gives you a lot of information.
No, not a problem at all. I really look forward to getting you on my show and discussing this.
Sure.
I'm going to read the book and stuff. I think it'll be an amazing interview.
Oh, well, thank you. Anytime, just give me a day's notice or so.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. There's so much there. So I guess we can go ahead and shut this one down for now. I feel like there was something else I wanted to mention. Rick, let us know where people can find your channel.
Okay, yeah, you can just find me on YouTube. Just look under Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking, and if you bring up that page, you will definitely find me, and it's basically, it's all in the title, stuff I think about.
Right on.
Doing a lot of interviews. I'm doing stuff on cryptocurrency. Teaching people all about crypto, right from its origins, and we're kind of building it up slowly to build people up. Doing some interviews with Greg and Catherine and a couple other people.
Cool.
Really cool site. You'll really enjoy it. It's a great site, guys.
Oh, yeah, sounds good.
Oh, Greg's got it up. There you go. You're on the ball there today, Greg.
There it is, right there. Yep. and I know you have a lot of stuff coming out, too.
For sure.
And you're working on a podcast? Are you working on getting the podcast going again? Or?
Well, yeah, I'm going to have to talk to you about, I want to start uploading up to my Anchor account like you do. So I just need help from you to teach me how to do that. But I definitely want to start doing that again and doing my Anchor podcast that I used to do.
Okay. And there is episode number 23, 21 Questions for Detective Gummert, Part 1. There will be a Part 2 coming out on New Year's Day. So New Year's Day will be the next podcast, the official podcast of the Gray Stage podcast series. Remember, every month, on the 1st of every month, we will premiere a brand new episode related to the David Crowley case, discussing my book, The Gray Stage by Greg Fernandez Jr. So I do hope that you have enjoyed that you've been watching, listening. You can always catch up on multiple episodes wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. You will be able to find it. So wherever you listen to your podcasts, no doubt you will find it right there. Wherever you watch streams on YouTube or Rumble, you'll find them both. If you just look up The Gray Stage, you will find it on YouTube and you will find it on Rumble. So, with that in mind, you can always just go directly to my website, thegraystage.wordpress.com, and find everything right there. Now, not only can you find the book, the free book, if you just go right here, go to thegraystage.wordpress.com, click on where it says read the book right under the title, and that will take you to where you can download the free PDF book by just clicking on this image right here, and within a couple seconds you have the book right there that you can download. Now, you can also purchase this book too. If you scroll down just a little bit more, you will be able to purchase a physical copy, and hopefully by next year we will have this book for worldwide distribution. Currently, you can only get it on lulu.com if you want the physical paperback book. Now, once it drops to worldwide distribution, this price at lulu.com will be lowered. So that will be kind of the trade-off here. I'll probably lower it down to $15 perhaps. And there's always deals. Go to lulu.com. We just missed one. There was just one deal that was 30% off, so you could have gotten this book for 30% off. And I'm sure around Christmas time that will be available. There's always some type of codes, discounts, so I will try to do better at posting those discounts for anyone that does want to purchase a physical copy. And I do believe directly from here you can purchase it no matter what country you're in. I know I've looked it up before. And so if you want to have a physical purchase to add to your collection, that is awesome. If you would like an autographed copy and maybe a couple little bonus gifts too, you can always email me at thegraystage@gmail.com, and we can discuss that as well. Usually with shipping, because I'm getting a lot of people who want it from out of state, so $25 will cover the cost and will cover the shipping cost, which for some reason is a lot more. So I don't know, with the worldwide distribution, maybe that'll be a little easier for people across this great planet who want to purchase a physical copy. But I would say before you purchase a physical copy, check it out, read the just download it, and maybe you won't need it. Like I said, you can always print this thing out too, so but if you want the physical copy, it is definitely there. But I wanted to make sure that this book is just for research purposes. So that's why I wanted to make sure everybody could have the PDF free. So you have access to that right now. The 21 questions for Detective Gummert in the latest version of this book, starting at page 107 in the PDF. And we got to 12 questions, so we still have a part 2, and I'm pretty sure we can get to the rest of those in the next episode. Perhaps, we'll see. Maybe we'll end up doing 3 podcast episodes on this, but this was released today on December 1st, 2021. And of course, Dan Hennen starts us off by reading out all of these questions here and going through at least 12 of these questions. And then we had a great awesome panel. We had Catherine, Sophia, we had Stephen Sanzeri, and we have a new member. We have Crypt Rick, who joined us for the very first time for this podcast. And so it was great to have his view, and I think he and Stephen are going to do something in the near future, and look out for maybe a bonus episode unrelated to this case that I may be putting out. I don't know if I'll put it out on this channel. I may put it out on my Greg Fernandez Jr. channel and my Greg Fernandez Jr. podcast, the What is Truth podcast, but we will make sure to put some of the extras that was taken out. This episode went about 90 minutes, and we do try to keep it to 1 hour. As Catherine always says, we always go over. It's almost impossible. I think Sophia would also agree with that. It's almost impossible to just stick to 90 minutes, but we try. That's our goal, is to stick to 60 minutes. And we've done it a couple times, but not every time. So just wanted to throw that out there. But this was great. We went through all of these questions, and we even teased, Stephen Sanzeri gave a little teaser about question number 14. So once we get there in our next episode, which will come out on January 1st of 2022. So we'll talk more about everything starting at question number 13 and down. And hopefully we'll be able to get through all of these questions and then kind of get through the end of the chapter. But you don't have to wait. You can download the book right now, and you don't have to wait to hear our views on it. You can just read it for yourself and decide what you think about this chapter, about this book. I love to get feedback too, so always looking for feedback. I try to converse with everybody at least once if I can, and beyond that, depending on where the conversation goes, we'll either limit our conversations or we will expand on those things. So thankfully we've had more expansions than deletions, quote unquote, blocks. So not too many blocks. Most of the people are very respectful, that comment, that can contribute, even some people that disagree about David Crowley. I've had some great conversations with people who also believe David Crowley did this, and we've discussed different things and different aspects. And if you read the back of my book and you still believe David Crowley is guilty, there's not much more that I can do. I've tried my best to kind of show you why I believe he is innocent. So when you purchase this book, you can kind of see some of that stuff here. It just talks about all things that the authorities could not do, that they could not prove. And that's been a part of a couple of short videos that I've made. We also have a new short video series that is coming out here soon. I've only gotten one episode done. This is just called David Crowley. David Crowley #1 covers David Crowley's gun. It keeps it very specific to what is in the police reports and to what is in the DNA results, which is what conveniently I also put in this book as well. So that will be a new series. It's starting up. We only have one episode out. The next one will be on the bullets and the bullet casings, and then we'll do one about the missing DNA, because there is at least 2 unknown DNA sources found in the Crowley home, and that deserves its own show. Also, William Rail has done, if you haven't followed William Rail on Twitch, please do. His Twitch channel is Strange Investigations. So if you go to Twitch and put in Strange Investigations William Rail, it'll probably be the first thing that pops up. He's been doing some great episodes lately on the timeline. He's put together a massive amount of work just on the timeline so that everybody can see what the timeline is, and that includes the phone records. So while I was kind of contemplating doing a show on the missing DNA, I was watching William's Twitch channel, and he was doing a show that pointed out a lot of the unknown phone records. So we have unknown DNA, we have unknown phone callers, and hopefully we'll be able to get into that and maybe do a little brief show on that. But the David Crowley series is what I'm calling it, and those will hopefully be short episodes, no longer than 6-7 minutes. Hopefully we can keep it to that for new researchers that just need a video glance to get caught up on different aspects of this case. So that will be what we will cover very soon. Now, regarding everybody who has contributed to the show and all of our listeners, I want to again thank you all. If you are not subscribed to Catherine's channel, please make sure that you do. Just type in her name, Catherine, Michele, only one L, and her YouTube is also I'm Asking Questions, which is pretty cool because it's very similar to our newest podcast panelist, Crypt Rick, who has a channel that is called Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking. And so one is asking questions, one is thinking, and that's what we need to do in this case to hopefully get the case reopened. I think that's still the goal here. Getting justice for the David Crowley and family has been, that's the goal of the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group here, and that goal has not changed. It stays the same. So you can see the group will be used to investigate the odd circumstances surrounding the deaths of David Crowley, his wife, and daughter. So that's the purpose of this group here. So Crypt Rick has been doing some great interviews. Check out his latest one with Sophia. And Sophia, hopefully she'll get a YouTube channel, get some social media platform where she can share more of her views. But just listening to this, which was awesome, because I loved hearing Sophia's views on this, because it is a little bit different. Somehow Crypt Rick has been able to find a way to make my interview about the case, Catherine's interview about the case, and Sophia's interview about the case different. So there is multiple stories, different content that you'll find just by watching all three of these, which you can always find on Crypt Rick's YouTube channel. Just type in Crypt Rick, CryptRick, and put in I've Been Thinking. It should pop right up. So hope you enjoy that. He's also got some other episodes and a lot of future episodes, so stay tuned for that. So make sure that you subscribe to his channel, to Catherine's channel, and once Sophia gets a channel, you want to subscribe there too. Don't forget about Dan Hennen, the man who started all of this here. If you go to uglytruth.info, his website is still up, and he's also now on Rumble as well, so make sure that you check him out on his new Rumble channel. He's going to be uploading past videos. I'm going to try to pull some videos that I have, and maybe we can have him upload those there too. And once we get into the big data dump that I have from my main channel, maybe we'll even start posting some more stuff as a new channel for Dan Hennen to YouTube. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. He's been doing some great work just on a lot of different things. He has his own radio show, so make sure that you also check that out on Eternal Affairs Radio. And you can find that wherever you listen to any podcasts, and you can see he's been doing a lot of great things about the human trafficking, the southern border. He's just got so many great things coming up here, so make sure that you check out Dan Hennen's podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you will be able to find it, and he just is knocking that stuff out there. So the most recent one that just came out, We Are the News Now with Dan Hennen on EA Truth Radio with Jack Dorsey. Omicron, you want to hear about that. Ghislaine Maxwell, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, Gavin Newsom, and more. So make sure that you check him out, because he's been doing some great stuff from Kyle Rittenhouse and a lot of other great topics. So whatever you are looking for, go to uglytruth.info and click on the radio show link and listen to his podcast. I think you'll be very impressed with that. Another person who joined us again was Stephen Sanzeri. So he was also with us, and that was great to have him a part of this podcast too. So Stephen has been doing some great work and a lot of good things coming up. But if you go to Amazon, put in Ultimate Prey, Stephen Sanzeri, it will pop right up. You can get the Kindle version, you can get the free book there. Get the paperback book there, so make sure that you do that, get one or the other. I got the paperback and I just really enjoy it. And I think Crypt Rick is going to have Stephen Sanzeri on very soon. I'm sure you all caught that at the end of this episode. And like I said, we'll have a bonus episode unrelated to this, talking about wrestling, talking about Stephen Sanzeri's time owning a Gold's Gym as a police officer, bounty hunter, all that great stuff. He has a lot of stories that we have not even touched on yet, so we'll probably be adding that. I may add that here to this podcast just for people who want to know more, dig a little bit deeper into Stephen Sanzeri and some of his past exploits and things that he's done in the past. So we do have the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group. I hope you all can join that. And we also have the Gray Stage page, so you can get some of the latest things before anybody else sees them. I try to post a lot of stuff there first, so you can always go to the Gray Stage. That is a page on Facebook, and you can follow that. But if you're looking for anything, for any documents related to the David Crowley case, just go to thegraystage.wordpress.com, and more than likely you'll find them all here. We do have the latest articles that we've done too, so you can see that on the fake police document, David's Day One Journal, the paranormal phone recordings, which I still have not made into a YouTube version yet, but if you've listened to this podcast, hopefully you've listened to that. Now, that was recorded before we got the Day One Journal, so there's obviously a few more things that should be added into that particular podcast or into that YouTube show once it's put out. If you're looking for David Crowley scripts, you can find those there too. And we also have the podcast, so if you click on the link to the Gray Stage podcast, what I do is I've compiled everything. So as we have new podcasts, all the podcasts will be added here. We will add the audio version, the video version, all of the bonus episodes, and the archives will all be added here. It's in one great place, so you can always make sure that you catch this stuff and catch our podcast. And this is a great way to make sure that you're going to the right place, especially with the YouTube. You can always catch it, and we have every month, again, every new episode, and we're just reading through my book basically and tasking Dan Hennen with reading through the book. But you can always get it right there, and so save this, subscribe to this website, I guess, and make sure that you, whenever I post anything new, but every month just come back in here and check, because there will be, whatever the latest episode will always be added into this section here. So just wanted to throw that out as well. And then if you keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling down, you will find all of the documents, and you can see that I have not done a good job at kind of putting them into some type of order, into the categories. So that is in the works for now. Just kind of scroll down and you can find just about every document that we have on this case that is related to this case, photos, videos, whatever you're looking for, you will find it here. If you're looking for the DNA results, that's been a big one. The one you want to download is the BCA lab analysis. That is going to give you the 40 pages of the DNA results. And the firearms results and all the other results, basically they're lab results. So lots of great stuff that you will find there, just depending on what you're looking for to further your research. And we have the 911 call, David's military records, things about guns, a search warrant, property evidence, their Equifax records, phone records, their email, David's contract. If you have not read David's Hollywood contract, it is right there. The lawyer bill for that, the lawyer correspondence, which is pretty weird and interesting. I'll leave it at that. The documents David wanted Danny Mason to sign are also here on my website, and the email exchanges back and forth between them. David Crowley was, he auditioned to be, or wanted to audition, filled out the paperwork to be on a show called The Doomsday Prepper, Season 3. So he did audition for that, so you can read that. If you're looking for his notebook, if you're looking for Camel's last text messages, David's mom's obituary, at least what we have, all of that stuff can all be found right here on my website. And as we get more documents, they will also be added there as well. So just want to throw that out to everybody. I want to say God bless you all. Thank you all for taking the time to listen and to watch this podcast every month on the first of every month. And until next time, I'll see you.